Welcome to Table Talk, a place for honest conversations and getting to meet friends. My name is Betsy Thompson, and I am so excited for y'all to get to meet Charles Casteel. Is here with us this morning. Thank you so much for coming to hang out.
Thank you, Betsy. I really appreciate being here this morning.
It is going to be so fun. Y'all listen, Charles is probably the newest staff member here at Sagemont. And I can't wait for y'all to get to know him, get to hear his story. He is just an amazing guy that y'all are going to love getting to know. So, newest person on staff.
Yes, that's right.
Welcoming you in. So excited you're here. You are going to be over pastoral care.
That's correct.
Okay. And so coming in, and some of you, we know Rex Forsyth has done that for years. He's fabulous at it. And y'all, here's the deal. I am thrilled for Rex that he gets to take a break.
Yeah.
If you know Rex, he puts in tons of hours and his heart is fully for these people in this place in the Lord. And I love that he's saying it's time for me to take a step back and take a break. He's going to be going part-time October 1st.
That's right.
Which we love that Rex is sticking around to walk you through and kind of show you the ropes and all those things. And then at the end of the year, Rex will be stepping down and you'll be taking it. And of course, Rex will still be here and love and be more than willing to help because we all know Rex and he's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But so cool that you're coming in to do this for the church.
Yeah, it's a real honor to be able to be a part of the team and the church. And I like to describe it as, you know, my shoes are only so big, but Rex's shoes are ginormous. And so I realize that his legacy and what Rex has done here at Sagemont over the years and what he's meant to the family and the body of Christ throughout the decades is something to be treasured, and I don't take it lightly. But I am very excited to be a part of that and to be able to learn from Rex and to be able to provide the best loving Christ-centered care that I can.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And in knowing you and your heart for we'll talk about what he's been doing, I want to encourage you in saying, I think you're just the right person to step in because we know Rex's shoes are big, but you are going to do such a fabulous job. And so be encouraged. I think you're exactly the right one to step in and take this.
Well, thank you so much, Betsy. I really appreciate that. And so far, everyone that I've met, they've been very encouraging, very supportive, and, honest to say that, Rex he's been a tremendous blessing to the church. And so, but I am so glad to know that Rex has been prayed for, and you guys have been praying for us as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Okay, So tell me just about your family.
So I'm married to Billie.
Yes.
Billie Casteel. That's my wife. We've been married for 9 years, as of July.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we have 2 beautiful children. Autumn is 6 years old. She's in first grade now. And Sterling, our son, he's 5 years old, and he's in kindergarten.
They're adorable. You all have the sweetest family, and we're so glad. Y'all have been, how long have y'all been at Sagemont?
We've been at Sagemont, it's been almost 8 years.
Okay, that's what I thought, a while. Yeah, so y'all came kind of as newlyweds and have had your kids and grown your family. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were married for about a year and a half before we came to Sagemont.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about first just share your salvation story with us. How did you come to meet the Lord? What has your walk with the Lord looked like?
So, I would say this, I was born in Texarkana, and, I'm 7 years older than my sister. My father, he was an alcoholic, and that was very painful to grow up as a child of an alcoholic. But we went to church, and so every Sunday, as often as we could, we would go to church, and I grew up in a missionary Baptist church. So I don't know if you're familiar with the denomination, but I grew up there, and I told my son the other day, I said, "Did you know I sung in the choir when I was when I was young?" But yeah, I was a part of the church, but at the same time, I really didn't understand the gospel, and plus going through all the things we were going through at home, it took me a while to understand what the gospel was, and so I went through a lot of pain at that time. But I tell you what, when I was 16, I'll never forget. A high school friend of mine, she invited me to church to come to church,
Awesome.
and I was kind of making fun. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to go to the church, but I decided to go. And I went to church, and I'll never forget the pastor. He preached his sermon, and he asked one question. He said, "If you were to die tonight, do you believe that you would be in heaven or in hell? So where would I spend eternity?" And for the first time, that question stuck with me. And I went home and I wrestled with that question all week. And because I did have a Bible, I read the Bible a little bit, and I went through John. I knew John 3:16, but this time I looked at it again, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I said, "I'm a sinner. I'm really a sinner." And I don't know if you heard of irresistible grace, but it's just when God pursues you, you can't run from Him. And I just know that God convicted my heart so much to where I knew that it was time. The time was now for me to repent and believe in the gospel, and I did.
That's awesome.
And I did at the house in my bedroom, and so then I was excited.
Yeah.
I went to my mom and dad. I said, "Mom, Dad," I said, I'm a Christian. I gave my life to Christ. And they were so excited. I told my sister, she's 7 years younger than me. She was like, "Yeah, okay, great."
Right.
But the next Sunday, I went to church, and I was waiting for the altar call. I was like, "Come on."
You were ready.
I was ready for it. And sure enough, he did the altar call, and I went down to the altar, and I'll never forget, they held the microphone up back in the day, and they would just ask, "Do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins? Do you believe he was buried for 3 days? And do you believe that he's, was raised from the dead?" And I was like, yes, yes, yes. And I remember it was about 200 people there that Sunday. And almost all the people got up from the balcony and the floor, and they all walked around and they said, "Welcome to the faith, welcome to the faith, welcome to the faith." And that was the best day of my life as a believer. I'll never forget that day.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that so much. It's such a good encouragement that, man, invite the people.
Yeah.
Right? It makes a difference to just say, "Hey, come sit with me in church."
Yeah.
And then it's not our job to do the thing.
Right.
We invite you, we encourage you, but it's the Lord.
Right.
It is the Lord that draws. It's the Lord that reaches. He just says, ask so they can come and so they can hear, and you can we get to be a part of that.
Right.
But the Lord's doing it. But such an encouragement to y'all ask.
Yeah.
Ask your friends to come.
Yeah. Always ask the friends to come, because you never know. And the gospel is the power of God. It is the power to save. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, I love that.
And there's nothing better than to know that God He cares so much about us that He died on the cross for us, and that message has to go out. So,
amen.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where did you go to school? So finished high school, Texarkana. What did what have you been doing since then?
Okay, so quick pause with that. I joined the Navy.
Wow.
And lived in San Diego for 11 years.
Wow.
That was beautiful. Loved it.
I hear they have good weather.
Oh, it's awesome
Right?
weather. Yeah.
I hear that's really good weather.
Yeah.
That's cool. You were in the Navy for 11 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Not 11 years. I was active duty for 4 years.
Okay.
And then I was active reserve for another 4.
Okay.
So I did 8 years
That's
total.
really cool. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So lived out there for 11 years.
Yes.
What brought you back?
So what brought me back was it was 2 things. The number one thing was the calling to ministry.
Okay.
So
Talk about that.
okay, so it's a windy road, but in 2007, I was going to a Bible study in San Diego, a new church I was going to, and the pastor, his name is Steve, and he came out in fatigues, and he had a class called boot camp.
Okay.
So the boot camp was a hermeneutics class. So that's basic Bible interpretation.
Okay.
So I went through that class, and I loved it. I could not stop, studying, and I never studied the Bible that way before, and it had such a big impact on my life. So I walked up and met him at the end, and I said, Pastor Steve, thank you so much for this class. It's been a real help to me, a blessing to me. And he looked at me and he said, Brother Charles, when God calls you to ministry, you let me know. And I said, I just kind of like what I'm doing now. I said, no way. I still appreciate the compliment, but thanks for the class.
Yeah.
And so I went on about my life, and I was doing corporate recruiting, technical recruiting at the time. And sure enough, a few weeks later, I was just reading and I was going to work, and all of a sudden, I had two visions, and I'll tell you the visions I had. Two visions were, I was wearing a white Navy uniform, with a cross, and I was carrying a Bible, and I was in front of a large group of people. And it had like a hangar bay, so the picture was more of a Navy kind of picture. But then the second one was, I walked into a hospital room, dressed in white, with a Bible, and I kept having that over and over again. And I remember I was reading 1 Timothy and going through the book of Timothy, and when it got to the pastor elder section, I was just floored. And then of course, Paul famously said, preach the word in season, out of season. Yeah. And I fell to my knees and I said, Lord, what are you saying that I should do here? And I couldn't shake the desire. I couldn't shake it. And I found myself going in and out of Christian bookstores there, and I was trying to find books on pastors and like what is this? And but long story short, I went back to Pastor Steve, and he said, I knew it. He said, I've been a pastor for 30 years. I know ministers when I see them. Wow. And so we talked, and I talked with my cousin at the time, who was also a pastor. Okay. And he got me on the right track. He gave me the Charles Spurgeon line, and it goes something like this: if you believe God has called you to preach, then do it. But if you have another desire, then go pursue that desire. So all I heard was go do something else. So I ran from the Lord for that period until I finally surrendered to the call. It was around 2008. I surrendered and said, Lord, I will do it. And I started Bible classes out at Azusa Pacific in San Diego. And my professor, she picked me and two other guys out after class, and she said, you need to go to seminary. And I said, what seminary what do you mean? And I said, can I just go here to Azusa? She was like, nah, don't go to Azusa, it's fine, but go to Dallas Theological Seminary. She said, go there because all the books we have are from Dallas anyway. Go there.
That's interesting.
Coming from a professor, right?
Yeah.
So I prayed about it and started looking at different seminaries. Yeah. And then I moved to Dallas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. I think it's so true for each of us, not just people that go into ministry. Yeah. But man, when God is wanting you to do something, he's so patient and loving with us, but he also is persistent.
Yes.
With us. And he is endurance, right? Like he will be like, hey, remember this thing? Hey, remember this thing I put in your heart? Remember the desire I put in your heart? Yes. That thing I want you to do? Remember that? And he just keeps showing it to us. And he's so gracious and patient with us. Yeah. Thank goodness. Yeah. But I love, and it's such an encouragement to anybody that's listening to go, hey, if that's happening right now in your life, like stop and listen. Yeah. And sit in that for a minute and just see, hey, Lord, is this you pointing me in a different direction? I love that you said it's a windy road. Yes. Because I've been looking at Proverbs 3. It's my favorite verse. When it talks about, the straight path, he will make your path straight. Right. And I was like, to us, it feels really windy. Yep. But when you stop and you look back, you're like, oh, that was a straight line that God took me on to get me to right here.
You're right.
I love that. That's
Yes.
awesome. So cool. So went back to Dallas.
Yes.
Went to DTS?
Yeah, went to
Okay.
DTS. So I was on campus there for 3 years.
Okay.
And then I switched to Southwestern.
Okay.
A little quick story about that.
Yeah.
I was in the biblical counseling program because I had an interest in counseling and an interest in the chaplaincy. And when I sat down with my cousin and shadowed him when he was stationed in Fort Lewis as an Army chaplain, I saw that he spent most of his day counseling. I mean, he taught Bible studies and he
Sure.
preached occasionally, but it was mostly sitting down with the soldiers. And my goal was to go back into the Navy as a chaplain. So I figured going to Dallas and get into counseling piece, and then I can fill in the other, classes
Right.
around that. And I called the Navy, and the Navy said, no, you must have a Master of Theology, which is a THM or
Wow.
an MDiv.
That's really great. Like,
Yeah.
I'm impressed that they're like, no, this is the requirement. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, they stuck to their guns.
Yeah.
So then I said, okay, I'll go ahead and shift to the MDiv at Southwestern.
Okay.
And so I went there, and then I graduated.
Awesome.
And I think it was 2017.
Okay. Now, did you go back into the Navy as a chaplain?
No.
Okay.
So no, I didn't go. I closed the door on that. I think it was a year ago, year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. So graduated from seminary. What did you end up doing?
So this is where Rex comes into play. So
Love Rex.
So when I came to Sagemont, I was wanting to become. I wanted to do hospital visitation.
Okay.
and-
What brought y'all to Sagemont?
So what brought us here is we were members of Houston First Baptist and
Okay.
loved it there.
Yeah.
And but we lived in Pearland at the
Okay.
time, and so we were driving far.
Yes. Yep.
To get to church and to be a part of a Bible study group.
Yep.
That was even further.
Yep.
So one morning, me and Billie were talking, and we just said, hey, why don't we look at a different church, And so we were looking at a couple of churches in the area, and then we heard Brother John, and I said, he's interesting.
Yeah.
And I never heard of Sagemont. I've heard the other churches, but not Sagemont.
Right.
So I said, let's check out Sagemont. So we came, and then we walked in, and the first two people we met were Jerry and Carol Neal.
Oh, love them.
They were one of the first two,
Awesome.
and as well as others. And gosh, it was just a blessing from day one. And I would say the best thing was, Brother John, he came out and met with the people, and I thought that was very wonderful and beautiful as a pastor to do that. So that stuck big for me. Yeah. So that's how we got here.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so came here and wanted to start doing hospital visitation.
Yes.
Which I think is such a cool thing because that is a very specific thing that somebody would say, I want to do that. Because it's not an easy thing.
No.
It's not an easy thing. And so I love that you were like, no, this is something I know I want to do.
Right.
So how did you do that? Like, how did you know even who to ask or how to get started with that?
So, so I looked up the Pastoral Care and found out that Rex was a part of it, that he was the leader of it. And so I went and I talked to Rex.
Awesome.
And he said, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. And
he took me around, and that further propelled me into confirming that this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I will also say that what led me into the chaplaincy, or how I got into becoming a chaplain altogether, was when I moved down here, I was working in Galveston as an IT recruiter.
Okay.
And I was doing the job, and everything was fine, but I was going to DTS, so I knew that was going to be short-lived to some degree. And it was. I ended up getting laid off from that job, and Billie went to work and talked to one of her chaplains there. And he said, tell Charles to give me a call. So I called him.
Yeah.
And I went down to Texas Children's Hospital and shadowed. And when I walked through the hospital door and walked into the patient's room, I started crying because I said, this is the same vision I had. And I was like, this is it. And so then it got started from there. And I started my chaplain career in 2015.
Okay. All right. So you've been doing that same hospital, different hospitals?
So different
over
hospitals.
time? Yeah.
Yeah. the way that works is to become a chaplain, you have to do what they call clinical pastoral education. So you spend the first year going to clinical training, and you work full time as a chaplain to learn how to do that in a hospital setting.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about just even as a chaplain, that's your job, but then also just as someone in our pastoral care that volunteers, that's going to a hospital. Talk a little bit about what does that look like? If somebody was like, I haven't ever heard of that, maybe I would want to do that. What does that look like? How does it work?
Okay, so that's a good question. So the hospital or the chaplain world or the hospital world is, to go out and visit patients. It's a wonderful process, a wonderful thing to do. But we also, go into the medical center. Mm-hmm. And, the medical center can be a little bit daunting, because of...
Listen, just figuring out where to park and where your car is once you're out and what doors you can... I mean, it's a whole deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, sadly, a lot of the people that know how to work that system is because of the people that have to be down there. And so that's a hard thing, too.
Yeah. And so So just to get there is one thing, to get parking. Mm-hmm. But once you get there, you get settled in. It's really about, from a church standpoint, we have church members that are in these hospitals that are sick or going through surgeries or they may be having babies.
That's right.
It's not always bad. It's good things. But when you go, it's a matter of understanding which rooms you're going into. Mm-hmm. Each floor has a different unit, which means that, one can, let's say you go into the heart center, well, that's cardiovascular, and you have everything that ranges from emergency care to immediate care, up to someone who has just been through surgery, or they're getting things checked out. So depending on where you go, you would learn a different protocol there. Usually the ICUs are probably the most fast-paced, and they may have more precautions than the others. But it's a pretty straightforward process once you get used to it. Mm-hmm.
I love that. And here at Sagemont, we have a team of volunteers that go and visit. Mm-hmm. Go to the hospital rooms, make phone calls, go check on people.
Right.
And I think it's one of the coolest things that Sagemont does, because it's even though we're a really big church, it's a super personal touch.
Right.
And we couldn't do it without the volunteers.
Absolutely.
Rex is awesome, and he's been everywhere, but he also has a great team of people that he has helped lead in how do you walk into the room? What do you say? How do you, pray for people? Right. All that kind of stuff. And so y'all have a team of people that do that, and I'm sure always willing to have more people if people want to come and be a part.
Yeah, we're always looking for people. Since starting, there has been a few couples and, just wonderful folks who have already expressed a desire and a passion for hospital visitation. And so, we're looking for more, so.
I love that. I think it's so cool that Sagemont does that. And I love that you're getting to pick that up. And I know Rex would always say, I don't know if you've heard him say this yet, but he would always say, if we know, we will go.
Right.
And he would always say, but if we don't know, then we can't go because we don't know. And so we want to, if you have a surgery, if you're in the hospital, let us know so our pastoral team can reach out to you and maybe come visit or give you a call. Or if you're like, I don't want people coming to visit me, we'll send you a card. We're not going to invade your space.
Right.
But we want to know what's going on with our people. And another big part of it that y'all have to do is walking with families when they lose people.
Yes.
When walking through funerals and all of that. And so, again, we as a church want to love on families when they're walking through that stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We definitely want everyone to be touched. We don't want anyone to fall through the cracks. Yeah. That is a big deal to the pastoral care team. Mm-hmm. And already I've seen there's just so many wonderful folks that are out visiting. Mm-hmm. Some people have visited, we're talking, 15 to 17 folks in a day. And just a simple look, a simple touch, a simple phone call or a card, all those things go a long way.
They do. They really, really do. They really, really do. Okay, so here at Sagemont right now, we are in a time where we're really looking at prayer and really focusing on prayer. And so I'm loving getting to ask people, just tell us a little bit about your personal prayer life and what that looks like, or what you're praying right now, or any piece of that you want to share. It's always such an encouragement for us to hear.
Yeah, so for me, it's because I spend most of my time on the road. The car is where I do most of my prayer. Or, I have places where I would go to walk and pray. And there's ebbs and flows into the longevity of the prayer. But right now, I've been spending more time in the Psalms. So I'm using that as a means to pray and to connect with God, but also something also is the names of God, and
yes,
and learning to pray to God in one of His names.
I love that.
So it's rhythms with me, but I usually spend more time out when I'm out and about. That's when I do most of my praying.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that so much. And y'all, what's so cool about prayer is there is an endless amount of ways that we can get to communicate with the Lord. I mean, it's through His Word, it's through His character, it's all of those different things. And He's just really saying, y'all just spend time with me. Yeah. Just spend time with me. So I love, beautiful example of this is how we can do that, just spending time with Him. Charles, I'm so excited you're here.
Yes,
it's so fun. We kind of did a little happy dance last week. We were like, hey. But super excited you're here. You're going to do a fabulous job at that. Know that as a church, we will be praying for you. We will be supporting you. Y'all, when you see Charles in the hallways, when you call Pastoral Care and he answers, just welcome him, pray for him, support him, and at the same time, be patient with him. He's new. He's going to learn the things. It's going to take time. And that's okay. We all do that. And so know that we will do that with you as well. So thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Yes, you're welcome.
It's always fun to hear people's Jesus stories.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than the testimonies.
Amen.
Yes.
I love it so much. Thank you for coming in today. Y'all, thanks for hanging out with us at Table Talk, and we will see you next time.